Hi everyone, I'm Pari. Welcome to Living Your Best Life with Eddie Stone, founder and CEO of Touchstone Essentials. Hello, Eddie.
Hello, Pari. So nice to have a chance to be with you and our
Yes.
lovely audience this evening or this morning, wherever they happen to be enjoying the show.
And how is everything now over there?
It's interesting, and maybe this is the same way in Thailand. After about a month, or I guess a little more, of sort of dealing with this sort of stay confined or stay home as much as possible, it starts to feel a little bit normal. All right. But I have really, you have mixed emotions, right? One, you understand some people are suffering, there are people dying, and there's sadness and concern about that, particularly in a place like New York or some of the bigger cities, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C., Boston. But then you also sort of see that it's kind of quiet. When I walk out of my house to take the dog out, normally I don't live in a city, but it's loud enough, right? You hear cars and things. And I came in last evening from taking the dog out, and I told my wife, I said, it's so quiet. It's like there's no one else that lives here. And I live in a populated area. So I guess maybe everybody finds it a strange time, right? And I guess there'll be things we learn about ourselves that'll be positive, but there's probably going to be some things that we realize are negative. I don't know how you feel about this, like with your kids or you see people, but for a long time, everybody was saying, really be careful with your screen time. Don't watch the iPad or the phone too much or the computer too much. Of course, now people, this is how they connect, right? People do Zoom calls. We have a Zoom call, we call it a cocktail or a happy social hour, coming up this Friday with our team, just to try to have something light and social to do, because no one's really seeing each other, and so it's interesting. And I don't know, maybe now it'll be normal to be screen time all the time. I don't know. It's really an interesting time.
I think everybody wants to get back to the normal life now.
I think most people do. I'm one of the things that I'm curious to see what happens is creative people, artists, musicians, writers, people like that. They've had this time sort of sequestered, right? What kind of great music or art or books have people been thinking about that are creative in that regard? I do think when people feel safe again, there'll be a lot of energy. When people break free, a lot of energy release. But I don't know if that happens real easily, right? I think people are going to be concerned at first to get back out there. So it's yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think. My parents are older, and I definitely, my dad particularly, I know he's like, I don't know what to think. He feels like a caged animal for his generation, but yeah. One thing I've realized is, and maybe you've seen this term, we're all in the same storm, but we're not in the same boat.
Yeah.
It depends on, do you have work that can be done online? My work can be done online, but for someone else, they're in the same storm, but they work in a restaurant and they can't work right now. Or they live in a city which would have a different feeling and a concern about social distancing as opposed to a more rural area like I'm from. Or depending upon how equipped maybe your local government is or your national government is, or I don't know. It's interesting. And I guess for the rest of our lives, we'll be talking about this. This is not going to go away when it goes away. We'll still be talking about the time of social distancing and staying at home during the pandemic.
Okay. So how about today, Eddie? What are we going to talk about to share with others?
Well, I want to talk about a subject that I feel like is timely to what we're discussing, and that's respiratory or lung health. The one thing I've seen as a company, and this is probably true for other people in the kind of health space that we're in, although I can't speak for them, but we've seen historic growth and sales globally. And so one thing that tells me, because it's really sustained since it started, is people are more serious, or some people are more serious about their health than maybe ever before. And I think that's because we're, sort of all told as we listen to health experts that your immune system and your respiratory health are really important. And so your risk factors are higher if you are obese or overweight. Your risk factors are obviously higher if you're older, because people's immune systems go backwards. Although I did see a great story about a 103-year-old woman that was recovering in Spain from having the virus. That's very, that's touching and inspiring to see. But people that live in highly polluted areas, people that are chronic smokers, people who have done things that would make their lungs not as healthy as they could be, are really at a very high risk. The virus can create an autoimmune response that's called a cytokine storm. And that's where, because of the rapid pace that the virus replicates and grows, as it maybe goes into the lung, upper parts of the lung, your body tries to react, but it overreacts. And so it winds up creating this incredible mucus storm in your lungs. And so it's heavy and you can't process oxygen and breathe. That's why people go on ventilators. And of course, a small percentage of people this happens to, but this is the most common problem people have. And so lung health is important. And so it seems like for the last week or so, when I'm doing a Zoom or a YouTube or a Facebook Live, as people are asking questions on what they should do, this is one of those subjects, right? So we can try to keep ourselves safe by staying away from sick people, and we can try to live a healthy lifestyle. But there are things you can do to promote lung health. And I'm going to give you a little list, if I could. And these are tried and true tips for everybody. I'm not making these up. These are things that are discussed in major universities, World Health Organization. These are things we know really are effective. And one of them is to be active. The more active you are, the more healthy your lungs should be, barring some unusual set of circumstances. Your lungs are like a muscle in that they expand and contract when they're used. So just as when someone lifts weights and their muscles can grow, or they go and run and they develop endurance, this is what your lungs do. And the more in shape you are, the more active you are, the more efficient that you process oxygen. And what's really critical here is, particularly for someone that gets the virus and starts to fight it, is they want to be able to maintain a higher level of oxygen in their blood. Where they get put on ventilators is when that oxygen level gets so low that they're risking a stroke, they're risking brain damage, and it generally, because of a lack of oxygen, can lead to organ failure. So a lot of people that die from the virus, they die of pneumonia, but they also die of things like kidney failure, and other difficulties with their brain because of this lack of oxygen. So for anybody out there, even if your lungs aren't in great shape today, you can work on your lung capacity. You can increase your lung capacity. And your lung capacity naturally diminishes over time with age. So for most people under normal circumstances, they have less lung capacity at 40 than they did at 30 or 20, less at 50 than they did at 40, 30, 20. But that's because they don't push themselves as much. So interval training, we've mentioned this on this show before, is one of those types of exercises where you kind of get yourself a bit out of breath, and you've got to do things like this based upon the shape that you're currently in. But you can expand your lungs, get yourself out of breath, recover, get yourself out of breath again, recover, and you can grow and increase your lung capacity and the efficiency with which you process oxygen. That's maybe the most important thing I can talk about tonight, is activity and pushing yourself, if you have enough cardiovascular health, to increase and improve your lung capacity. The second one, and this goes back to a theme we have on the show of trying to eat more fresh fruits and vegetables, less ultra-processed food. In this case, the reason that becomes very critical is the antioxidant qualities that you find in deep green leafy vegetables and fruits, really any fruit or vegetable, any produce that's got a lot of color, in the pigments that create the color, they're going to be a tremendous amount of antioxidants. And those antioxidants, because of ion exchange, can diminish the impact of oxidative stress or free radical damage, which can damage the lungs particularly. So paying attention to the quality of that food, the micronutrients in that food, and how the mitochondria, it's actually the mitochondria in the cell, it refers to it as a respirator, and it's a respiratory capacity to turn micronutrients from fruits and vegetables, from food, into energy, which your body will use, right, to drive lung capacity and help your immune system. So this is really a critical point. So staying active, vegetables and fruits that have high antioxidants qualities. Beyond exercise, and particularly for anybody that listens to us that knows yoga or other types of exercises, Tai Chi is another example, anything that you can do that has practiced breathing or breathing exercises. So it's one thing to engage in a physical activity such as running or weightlifting or riding a bike or whatever it happens to be. It's another and an important thing to also do, particularly if your lungs aren't as healthy as they should be, to practice breathing, deep breathing. So you're blowing out spent carbon dioxide and toxins from your lung, taking in clean breath, right? So practice breathing. And you could go on YouTube or even Google, but you can see all kinds of examples of very simple deep breathing exercises, and anybody can do those. Now, one thing you might notice is after 30 seconds, you might feel just slightly lightheaded. That's a good indication that you needed to do it. And it's a good indication that you're bringing in some solid oxygen into your lungs. But this is something for lung health that's critical, is practice breathing. The next, we might call this number 4, is being conscious of detoxifying your body. Now, breathing exercises aid your body in detoxification. So that's important. Eating clean helps you with detoxification. Trying to make sure the air in your home or your apartment or wherever you live is as clean as possible. So if you have the option of having air filtration, that's a great idea, and maintaining, even if it's very simple filters, keeping them changed out when they're dirty so that they can hold on to larger particulates in the air. But you want to think about the quality of the air. Now, everybody doesn't live in a place where they have that choice. You know, if you live in the downtown of a really busy city, not a lot of choices. But you can do things to try to avoid, wear a mask. Everybody's wearing a mask these days. Wear a bandana. If you're a runner and you live in a big city, you should invest in one of the neoprene running masks that you see advertised, so that there's something filtering that air that you're taking deep into your lungs. It's important. Let's call it number 5, drinking plenty of clean water, as clean a water as you can, because water aids the body in flushing toxins. It also can help to control the mucus buildup in your lungs. So when you are dehydrated, your lung tissues can actually become thick with mucus and not move and be as sort of supple and soft as they should be. The more hydrated you are, the less that occurs, and that lining isn't so thick, it's thinner inside the lungs. So good clean water, crucial, really important to think about. So water is important. And then let's call this number 6, lung-friendly herbs, if that's kind of something to think about. And so I would imagine that growing up in Thailand, you probably had some discussion of things like this, but things like astragalus, peppermint, thyme, they're all types of herbal formulations, but particularly herbal teas. You know, peppermint tea, even being exposed to eucalyptus, things that open up lung capacity. These are things that if they're a part of your habits, if it's something that you can enjoy after dinner or in the mornings, right, will just improve lung function. That's what we're trying to do on a regular basis, is improve lung function. And then let's call this number 7, green tea, right? Green tea's been this secret miracle healing substance that Asia has known about forever, right? I mean, this is something that's clearly a big part of the success. I think, if I'm not mistaken, green tea is second only to water in terms of beverages consumed around the globe, followed by coffee. And the things that have been around that long and that popular, right, there's clearly a good reason. There's all types of chemicals, good, healthy chemicals found in green tea that can help with metabolism. But some of those same compounds found in green tea, matcha tea is perhaps the best here because you get so much of the physical material in the tea that you're drinking, helps to open up the bronchioles in the lungs. And so it improves lung function physically because of the way the substances inside the green tea treat the tissue in the lung. And so that's my list. And I'm sure that you could have someone else on here that might have 2 or 3 other tips to add in there. But the bottom line is, if you can stay active, right, engage in breathing exercises, really try to think about the quality of the food, as many fresh fruits and vegetables that are rich in antioxidants in your diet. Think about detoxification. I'm a big believer, for example, that a part of anybody's habits should be zeolites, right? We speak about that on the show quite a bit. Our Pure Body Extra nano size, it's a cellular cleanse, right? So supports that detoxification. Clean water. I know clean water can be a luxury for people, but if you're looking at something to invest in, clean water, a filter for your sink, a filter for your house, these are things that are really critically important because they aid the body in detoxification. And then, of course, I'm encouraging to drink more water. And so there's a lot of good things here that if people will pay attention to it, they'll give themselves the best help possible, so that whether it's the coronavirus or the common cold or other respiratory issues, these things are even beneficial if you live in an area with a lot of pollution. Because if that's where you live, it's what you have to deal with, then trying to support your lungs, even in that situation, are helpful. And you're going to see an improvement in your health. And it's critical because little things, for example, pregnant women that don't pay attention to lung health can often have children that are underweight and premature. Men that don't pay attention to this are more likely to have strokes and heart attacks on top of lung cancer, right? So there's all kinds of reasons to think of your lungs as a really crucial, like your heart, like your liver. I guess all your organs are important. But when we start talking about your lungs and your liver and your heart and your brain, these are important things to pay attention to.
Your tips are very useful, Eddie. I think I have to add up on this breathing exercise, the rest that I'm doing all the time. So this one is very interesting.
And for anybody in the audience that they're a little bit vain and they're worried about their skin, breathing exercises will improve the suppleness and the clarity of the skin because it helps to detoxify.
Wow, that's great. Okay. Thank you very much, Eddie, for today. So we see you again next time.
See you soon, Pari. Bye, everyone.
Bye.